Hello and welcome to News on the Hour. I'm Rukma, and over the next 1 hour, we'll be taking you through all the stories making headlines across India and the world in every aspect, whether it is politics, business, sports and otherwise. So let's begin with the headlines. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and US Secretary of State Blinken review Indo-Pacific developments and Quad cooperation, exchange views on situation in Myanmar. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to virtually inaugurate the World Sustainable Development Summit 2021. Theme of the summit is redefining our common future, safe and secure environment for all. Rescue and relief work on at a fast pace in Uttarakhand after glacier disaster. Armed forces, NDRF, SDRF, ITBP and other agencies intensify efforts to locate and rescue 174 missing persons. 25 to 35 estimated to be still stuck inside a tunnel. At least 32 people have perished so far. US Senate declares Trump impeachment constitutional, allowing trial to proceed. United Nations, United States express strong concerns over reports of use of force by security forces against demonstrators in Myanmar. New Zealand announces suspension of all high-level political and military contact with Myanmar. Origin of COVID-19 pandemic remains a mystery. WHO scientists say theory that COVID-19 virus was leaked from a Wuhan lab is extremely unlikely. Announces mission to uncover origins of the virus in China have failed to identify any animal source either. Opening film at 51st International Film Festival of India, another round gets shortlisted for Academy Awards in Best International Feature category. And now for our top story, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar spoke to US Secretary of State Mr. Blinken yesterday, and they touched upon various issues concerning both countries. They discussed Myanmar following the military coup and reviewed developments across the Indo-Pacific region. These issues came up in the second phone conversation between S. Jaishankar and Blinken in a little more than a week. In a tweet, Dr. Jaishankar said, "Welcome the comprehensive discussion with Secretary Blinken." He said, and I quote, "reviewed Indo-Pacific developments and the Quad cooperation. Exchanged views on the situation in Myanmar, look forward to remaining in touch." US Secretary of State Antony Blinken also tweeted, and I quote, "Our partnership with India across the Indo-Pacific is critical to addressing challenges we face in the region and globally. Dr. S. Jaishankar and I had a fruitful discussion about ways to strengthen our cooperation to address regional developments, including the situation in Burma." State Department spokesperson Ned Price in a media briefing said the US-India comprehensive global strategic partnership is both broad and multifaceted. He added that for the US, India is one of the most important partners in the Indo-Pacific region. Price also said the US welcomes India's emergence as a leading global power and its role as a net security provider in the region.
US-India comprehensive global strategic partnership is both broad as well as multifaceted. We'll continue to engage at the highest levels of our government to deepen cooperation on many fronts, and we are confident that the strong and upward trajectory of our partnership will in fact continue. India is one of the most important partners in the Indo-Pacific region to us. We welcome India's emergence as a leading global power and its role as a net security provider in the region. We cooperate on a wide range of diplomatic and security issues, including defense, non-proliferation, regional cooperation in the Indo-Pacific, counterterrorism, peacekeeping, the environment, health, education, technology, agriculture, space, and oceans. And of course, that list is not exhaustive.
And during the call, Blinken also expressed concern over the military coup and the importance of the rule of law and the democratic process in Myanmar. The U.S. Secretary and the External Affairs Minister also discussed regional developments, including the value of U.S.-India cooperation across the Indo-Pacific. Both sides look forward to expanded regional cooperation, including through the Quad, and to address the challenges of COVID and climate change.
Quad is a key example of the United States and our closest partners, including in this case India, pulling together for the good of free and open Indo-Pacific region. We view the Quad as having essential momentum and important potential, and that's why we're going to build on it by deepening cooperation on areas of traditional focus, and that includes maritime security, while also working closely with Quad partners to confront some of the defining issues of our time. That, of course, includes COVID-19, it includes climate, and includes, going back to our previous conversation, democratic resilience as well.
And joining us now is our correspondent Abhishek Jha to tell us more about all the various implications of whatever Ned Price said after his conversation with Dr. S. Jaishankar. Abhishek, a very good morning to you. Could you tell viewers of News on the Hour about the significance of the conversation that Dr. S. Jaishankar had with Secretary Price, and also what are the implications of all that was highlighted after that meeting?
Of course, Shukma, this whole conversation that has happened between the foreign ministers of two countries is to give a boost or to continue the momentum that has been built over the years in the relationship of India and US. We talk in terms of strategic cooperation, bilateral cooperation, in trade, other defense cooperation, or the regional issues of regional concern that both countries try to address simultaneously. So this conversation is in that direction. Talking about the Indo-Pacific, that has been one of the major focus area of India-US relationship in this Indo-Pacific region. This is an area where India, US, the other Quad members including Australia and Japan wants this area to remain free, open and transparent. There has been a perception that in recent times China has been trying to dominate this area to pursue its own interest, own commercial interest and own strategic interest, taking over the interest of minor countries in the region. And the Quad setup, this whole Quad setup has been initiated to counter that challenge and create a balance in this area where countries, especially those ASEAN countries which are smaller in size and they don't have the comparable strength to compete or challenge the Chinese dominance in this area, they can also be assured of a friendly and allied support from these Quad members. So this talk that both the leaders have tried to focus around this Indo-Pacific area goes a long way in ensuring that the process that both the countries have started in Indo-Pacific region to keep the area free, fair, open and transparent for all the countries in the region and across the globe, whoever tries to transact their business and commercial interests in this area, they should be allowed to remain in a very safe way and free way. On the other aspect of issue, the leaders also had a discussion on the regional issues. We know that areas like Afghanistan, which has been one of the key concern of both India and USA, because India has been involved in Afghanistan in humanitarian aid. We have recently seen that Prime Minister has also announced, just yesterday only, there is yet new dam that India has built for Afghan people. And otherwise also India has been a huge helping hand to Afghanistan in this time of crisis over the decade. While the USA has intervened militarily in Afghanistan and tried to create peace. So the area remains still Afghanistan is restive. The peace the USA, Taliban, Afghanistan government all are trying to bring about has not happened yet. So what should be the way forward? So this is also one of the area that India and the USA like to discuss among themselves in order to create a more stable and peaceful Afghanistan. Talking about the other issue that has just happened in the neighboring state of India, on the Burma, there is a democratic setup that has been just taken over by the military. USA, India both have expressed their desire that the restoration of democratically elected government should happen as soon as possible. And there is no denying of the fact that both India and USA, being the oldest modern democratic setup and the largest democratic setup in the world, they try to have the concerns in the recent developments of Myanmar, and they would like to see a democratically led government to restore in the power as soon as possible. So these were the regional topics that was discussed during the phone conversation of the both leaders.
Right, Abhishek, and when the US says that it welcomes India's emergence as a global power, well, clearly it's a thumbs up for India's contribution during the COVID pandemic, its contribution to support in terms of vaccines, supplying vaccines to less fortunate countries. Also, its commitment towards peace and stability in the region.
Okay, of course, Sukma, we'll have to see this whole statement that has come from the US side in a larger context, because India in the recent years has tried to become the provider of net security in this region, be it Mozambique, where the flood has come, Madagascar, taking the assistance to the flooded Madagascar in the recent time, providing assistance in times of COVID pandemic, during the times of COVID pandemic to the region, countries like Seychelles, Mauritius, Maldives, and even after the pandemic, when the pandemic is easing up and the vaccine has been discovered, India is also trying to take its vaccine, India-made vaccines, to all the countries in the region on a friendly basis and then on a commercial basis also to some countries. So this is the power that India has tried to create in the past few years, and it's just in time that USA has acknowledged that no more are the days when India would play a proxy for some other country's interest in this region. India has its own interest. Even our Prime Minister in his Shangri-La speech a couple of years ago had clearly stated the fact that India has its own vision in Indo-Pacific region, and India would like to pursue its own interest and own strategic dynamics that would favor India's stance in this region. So India is not playing anybody's proxy here. India has its own vision and own interest, and if any ally or any partner or any collaboration has to happen, it will have to happen at a level where India can be treated independently, and India can also and other partners would also be seeing India's own interests being pursued. So this is a barrier, this is a boundary that India has created over the years, that India has to be acknowledged first, and then only it can be partnered or collaborated to further any interest of global partners or allies.
Right, Abhishek, thank you very much for joining us and for your inputs. And moving on now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will today inaugurate the World Sustainable Development Summit 2021 via video conferencing. The theme of the summit is redefining our common future, safe and secure environment for all. The 20th edition of the Energy and Resources Institute's flagship event, the World Sustainable Development Summit, will be held online from the 10th to the 12th of February. The summit will bring together a wide number of governments, business leaders, academicians, climate scientists, youth and civil society in the fight against climate change. India's Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy and Ministry of Earth Sciences are key partners of the summit. Energy and industry transition, adaptation and resilience, nature-based solutions, climate finance, circular economy, clean oceans and air pollution are amongst the range of topics to be discussed during the summit. And an update now on the Uttarakhand disaster. Search and rescue efforts are on a war footing to save and locate the lives of over 170 people who continue to be missing after Sunday's glacier tragedy in Chamoli district. 25 to 35 workers are feared to be trapped inside a tunnel at Tapovan, where a multi-agency operation continues. The death toll has risen to 32. 8 bodies have been identified while 24 are still unidentified. Meanwhile, emergency workers are racing against time to dig through mud and rocks. The semi-liquid debris is estimated to be nearly 180 meters deep. Over 100 meters of the tunnel entrance stretch has been cleared so far. BRO teams are working on a war footing in the rescue operations. More than 300 meters of the road have been completely cleared. Also, the work of constructing a bridge over the river is being conducted at a rapid pace. SDRF teams are involved in relief and rescue operations as well. A ropeway is being prepared by SDRF to facilitate the movement of people. Meanwhile, according to the Electricity Department, power supply was affected in 13 villages, of which the supply of electricity has been ensured in 11 villages. Electricity lines are being laid for the remaining 2 villages. Water supply has also been restored in 8 villages. And now a look at COVID-19 updates from across the country. As per latest data released by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, COVID-19 recovery rate has reached 97.27%. India's total active caseload has also dropped to 1,41,000. The active caseload now consists of just 1.30% of India's total positive cases. According to the Health Ministry, total number of recoveries has now gone up to over 1,561,000. Presently, the total number of active cases is 1,41,511. Currently, India's case fatality rate is at 1.43%, which is one of the lowest globally. And with the vaccination drive crossing major milestones, efforts to track COVID-19 are still going strong. According to the Indian Council of Medical Research (ICMR), a total of 20,33,24,655 samples have been tested for COVID so far. Of these, 7,36,903 samples were tested on Tuesday itself. The Union Health Ministry has said that over 63,10,000 beneficiaries have received COVID vaccine so far since the launch of the drive on the 16th of January this year. Addressing the media in New Delhi, Health Secretary Rajesh Bhushan said these beneficiaries include healthcare workers as well as frontline workers who were administered the first dose of the vaccines. He also informed administering a second dose to the beneficiaries will start from the 13th of February and said India is the fastest country to reach 6 million vaccinations in just 24 days, while the United States took 26 days and the UK took 46 days to reach this level. 12 states and union territories have vaccinated more than 65% of registered healthcare workers. And India expanded its vaccine Maitri mission even further, providing made in India COVID-19 vaccines to Caribbean countries, Dominica and Barbados, who have received made in India vaccines. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar tweeted to call it a gesture of goodwill and an example of support. In a path-breaking achievement, researchers at IIT Delhi have generated clean fuel hydrogen from water. The fuel is not just cheaper, but also cleaner. We tell you more in this report.
curb greenhouse emissions have driven researchers to look for alternative sources which are cleaner and greener. Amid this, researchers at the Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi, have generated clean hydrogen fuel from water at a very low cost. Researchers of the Premier Institute have successfully split water to a process known as sulfur-iodine thermochemical hydrogen cycle to generate low-cost, clean hydrogen fuel for industrial consumption.
Water can be split using sulfur and iodine at reasonably low temperatures and pressures. Otherwise, water cannot be split so easily into hydrogen and oxygen. Water is a molecule that contains both hydrogen and oxygen. So H2O. So we want H2. So if we can split water and get H2 from there, that will be a green way of getting future fuel called hydrogen. So this one is called the cycle which utilizes the sulfur and iodine for water splitting, is called the sulfur iodine thermochemical cycle for water splitting.
This technology to separate hydrogen fuel from water is entirely indigenous, and the complete process has been developed at Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. This technology is funded by Oil and Natural Gas Corporation Energy Centre. The institute has been working on this project since 2007.
As we know that these particular fuels won't last a lifetime. So we need a fuel that is available, abundant, and that is eco-friendly. So the hydrogen, if we are producing hydrogen from water, and then when we are utilizing this hydrogen for getting energy out of it, then the exhaust of this particular fuel will again produce water. So this will become a loop. So it will never end. So this particular fuel will never end. So it is a future fuel.
Hydrogen gas, a viable choice as a renewable substitute for fossil fuels, can help mitigate emissions. It is expected that in coming days there will be a large-scale commercial production of hydrogen and reduction in dependence on petroleum fuels. Nishant Saurav's report, DD India.
And it's time now for a short commercial break. And we'll be right back with more on news on the hour. So stay tuned and keep watching DD India.
And around the world, in-depth analysis of global headlines. Watch DD India in your country. Available for downlink in all Southeast Asian countries. STTV broadcast is available through the satellite GSAT 17 at 93.5 degrees east. HDTV broadcast is available through the satellite GSAT 10 at 83 degrees east. For technical details, scan here. Switch to DD India now.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching news on the hour, and I'm Rukma with you. And another story making headlines on news on the hour is from the United States. Again, problems of President Donald Trump continue to mount as the U.S. Senate has voted to proceed with the impeachment trial against the former president, with 6 Republicans joining all Democrats. The Senate voted 56-44 to proceed with its trial of the former president, a historic first, rejecting largely along party lines his defense lawyer's argument that the president cannot face trial after leaving the White House. Democrats hope to disqualify Trump from ever again holding public office. The Senate voted in favor of Trump's impeachment trial, with a majority of senators determining they have jurisdiction to place former presidents on trial in cases of impeachment. The Senate rejected arguments by Trump's attorneys, who asserted that holding an impeachment trial of a former president is unconstitutional. 6 Republicans joined all 50 Democratic senators in voting to move forward with the trial, but the vote also served as an indication of Trump's eventual acquittal.
On this vote, the ayes are 56, the nays are 44, and pursuant to S. 47, the Senate having voted in the affirmative on the foregoing question, the Senate shall proceed with the trial as provided under the provisions of that resolution.
The trial will resume today when the Democratic managers will have 8 hours to present the case for convicting Trump. Both sides will have 2 days to make their arguments before the Senate considers possible witnesses before a final vote. Senators will convene every day until a verdict is reached.
I ask unanimous consent that the trial adjourn until 12 noon, Wednesday, February 10th, and that this order also constitute the adjournment of the Senate.
And Trump is facing charges of inciting his supporters to raid Capitol Hill last month as the 45th U.S. president. The trial is an unusual one, not just making him the first president in U.S. history to be impeached twice by the lower chamber of Congress. He is also the first president in U.S. history to face a Senate trial after leaving office. Amid this, there is a lot of debate on whether his impeachment this time holds any water in terms of legality, since his impeachment trial begins after he demitted office. A school of thought believes that impeachment is about removing somebody from office, and Trump is already out of office, while some believe that the Constitution of the United States paves the way for his disqualification from future office as one of the remedies for impeachment. To disqualify Trump from holding office in the future, the Senate will need to convict him, which can only happen if 67 members of the 100-member Senate vote against him. Now the Senate is divided into 50-50 ratio, where 50 seats are held by Republicans and 50 by Democrats. So the conviction can only happen if 17 Republicans vote against him. The prosecution and defense will be given 16 hours to make their arguments. A round of voting will then be held to call the witnesses who will testify against or in favor of Donald Trump, deciding the future of this unusual impeachment trial. And news regarding Myanmar, the United Nations has expressed strong concern at reports of the use of force on Tuesday in Myanmar by security forces against demonstrators, citing reports from the capital Naypyidaw, Mandalay and other cities in which numerous demonstrators have been injured, some of them seriously, by security forces. The UN resident coordinator in Myanmar said that use of disproportionate force against demonstrators is unacceptable. It called upon security forces to respect human rights and fundamental freedoms, including the right to peaceful assembly and freedom of expression. The protests against the military government continued as people gathered in several towns in the country despite curfew and curbs on public gatherings issued by the government for 10 regions in the country. The US has also expressed strong concerns over reports of the use of force by security forces against demonstrators in Myanmar. US State Department spokesman Ned Price said that everyone had a right to freedom of expression and peaceful assembly. US also repeated its calls for the military to relinquish power, restore democratically elected government, release those detained and lift all telecommunication restrictions, as also to refrain from violence.
We strongly condemn violence against demonstrators. All individuals in Burma have rights to freedom of expression, association, peaceful assembly, including for the purposes of peaceful protest. We repeat our calls for the military to relinquish power, restore democratically elected government, release those detained, and lift all telecommunication restrictions and to refrain from violence.
The situation of unrest and chaos in the country has also startled the international community, with leaders across the globe announcing strong action against Myanmar. New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern on Tuesday said that her government will suspend all high-level political and military contact with Myanmar. She also announced a travel ban on Myanmar's military leaders.
New Zealand is suspending all high-level political and military contact with Myanmar. Minister Mahuta has also directed that New Zealand's aid program to Myanmar should not include projects that are delivered with or benefit the military government. We've also agreed to implement a travel ban to be formalised in the coming week on Myanmar's military leaders.
And moving on, in Washington, D.C., a group of protesters gathered outside the Myanmar embassy on Tuesday to protest against the military coup. They approached the embassy, presenting an employee with a letter calling on the staff of the embassy to resign and join the civil disobedience movement against the Myanmar military. The United States has condemned violence against demonstrators opposed to the military coup in Myanmar, saying everyone had a right to freedom of expression and peaceful assembly. The administration of President Joe Biden has been working to restrict some aid to Myanmar and has threatened to impose sanctions. The World Trade Organization on Tuesday said its top decision-making body, the General Council, will meet on the 15th of February to decide on the next Director General. Nigeria's Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala is widely expected to be selected to fill a months-long leadership void at the global trade watchdog after Washington reversed its opposition last week. The 164-member body has been without a leader since Brazil's Roberto Azevedo left a year early on the 31st of August. And the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board cited the pilot's poor decision-making as the probable cause of the helicopter crash that killed retired NBA star Kobe Bryant, his daughter and 7 others in 2020. The NTSB said that the pilot became disoriented and did not follow rules for flying in cloudy weather. Basketball legend Kobe Bryant was traveling with his 13-year-old daughter, 2 other girls and several friends to a youth basketball tournament at the time of the crash. The accident prompted an outpouring of shock and grief from sports fans worldwide. More news from the U.S. Gunmen opened fire at a health clinic in Minnesota in the U.S., injuring several people, followed by a bomb explosion inside the clinic. Police have apprehended a male suspect involved. The investigation into the attack is underway. There were no casualties till reports last came in. Here we slip into a very short break. Also coming up, we bring you updates on the COVID situation. So stay with us.
That's causing havoc worldwide. Search for an effective vaccine is on. Until then, the only option is caution and prevention. Now that the country has opened up under Unlock 5, it's all the more critical that we don't let our guard down. Face mask has been found to be the most effective means to fight the spread of COVID-19.
World Health Organization and various researchers have also found that masks are critical in mitigating the spread of COVID-19.
When you wear a mask, you protect yourself and people around you. Wearing a face mask helps prevent the spread of COVID-19, but only if worn properly.
बिना मास्क या फेस कवर के घर से बाहर निकलने की अभी कल्पना करना भी सही नहीं है.
Be a part of DD India campaign. Mask Up India. Come and join our initiative to fight COVID-19. Share your stories of masking up with us on Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching news on the hour, and time now for all the latest COVID updates in terms of facts and figures from across the world. Let's take a look. So far, over 10 crore 74 lakh 11,000 people have contracted the virus so far, while the number of recoveries has crossed 7 crore 93 lakh 22,447 worldwide. The virus has claimed more than 23 lakh 51,000 lives globally, and it continues to ravage the United States the most, where 2 crore 77 lakh 90,000 cases have been registered. The number of fatalities due to COVID in the US stands above 4 lakh 79,000, followed by Brazil, which has lost around 2 lakh 33,590 lives. The origin of the COVID-19 pandemic still remains a mystery. The WHO fact-finding team held a joint press conference with China's researchers. In this, scientists of the WHO have said that the theory that the COVID virus leaked from a Wuhan lab is extremely unlikely. They also announced that the mission to uncover the origins of the virus in China have failed to identify any animal source, as stated earlier. US President Joe Biden met with the chief executives of JP Morgan Chase, Walmart, Gap Inc. and Lowe's companies as part of his efforts to boost an economy still reeling from the coronavirus pandemic. Biden and the executives, joined by Vice President Kamala Harris and Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, discussed Biden's $1.9 trillion coronavirus recovery package, known as the American Rescue Plan. And Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis has announced a full lockdown in Athens and the greater Attica region to curb a resurgence in coronavirus cases. The new restrictions in the capital include closing non-essential shops and schools from the 11th of February until the end of the month. Authorities registered 1,526 infections on Tuesday, with COVID-19 related deaths reaching 6,017 since the coronavirus was first detected.
To always be one step ahead of the virus, and this tactic was effective with the last restriction in January. Today, however, the danger is reappearing. We could wait a few more days, but the alarm bells are ringing, and we have learned to act in order to prevent the problem and not follow behind the problem in order to save lives.
Residents of Chile's Easter Island have started receiving their COVID-19 vaccines as the country's vaccination rollout reached the remote South Pacific island. Nearly 8 lakh people in Chile, including frontline medical workers and many of its elderly, have been vaccinated against the virus. The country has set a target of inoculating nearly 5 million people, more than 1/4 of its population, by the end of March. The island is expected to receive a total of 16,000 COVID-19 vaccine doses. Peru launched its COVID-19 vaccination campaign on Tuesday with newly arrived doses of China's Sinopharm vaccine. Health officials kicked off the program in the intensive care unit of Lima's Arzobispo Loaiza Hospital, where medical staff stated to receive the first of 300,000 doses. The country plans to begin immediately inoculating 1 million health officials, police and military personnel, among others, in a first round of vaccinations that will likely run through March. Again, Venezuela is all set to receive the first 1 lakh doses of Russia's Sputnik V coronavirus vaccine next week. President Nicolas Maduro has previously said the South American country will receive 10 million doses of Sputnik V vaccine. An official with the Pan American Health Organization said last week that between 1.4 million and 2.4 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine had been reserved for Venezuela and could arrive by the end of February.
Next week, thousands of Sputnik 5 vaccines are arriving in Venezuela. We have been told about the first arrival of the 1 lakh Sputnik 5 vaccines, and when the vaccination process begins, we will vaccinate all medical personnel, all health personnel in Venezuela, the most vulnerable sectors, and then we will vaccinate teachers, educators.
It's always said that whatever happened to you for the first time, be it any new experience, the second one is never the same. Snowfall may not be new to new European countries, but for Bao Di and Bao Mei, the two baby pandas in a Belgian zoo, they are mesmerized to see snow for the first time in their lives, while in Lithuania, people appear buoyant, enjoying snowfall despite COVID restrictions. The country's Vilnius has become the first city in the world to offer sledges on rent as part of a car-sharing service. To know more about these interesting stories, take a look at this report. Winter storms and snowfall are not just celebrated by humans, as these panda siblings encounter their first snow at a Belgian zoo while freezing weather swept parts of northern Europe. Amid few failed attempts at crawling and rolling under the snow blanket, the sibling duo spotted enjoying the winter chills with their mother Hao Hao, who is already an expert at it. The panda twins were born in Paris-Diza Zoo in August 2019. Native to a cold habitat, they are most active during the winter. As the flakes fell, the panda cubs had the most fun, rolling, sliding and playing with their first snow. Winter fun for all in Lithuania. With pan accessibility, Vilnius city has become the first in the world to offer sledges on rent as part of a car-sharing service. Local company City B has come up with 100 cars equipped with sledges in the trunks available for rent, including special accessible cars. Through this, people can find less crowded places in snow-clad hillsides amid COVID-19 restrictions. With booking for sharing cars, clients can enjoy the wooden vintage-style sleds without even paying anything extra. Bureau Report, DD India. And some business news now. Looking to regain a gaining streak, the Sensex and the Nifty began today's session in the green. S&P BSE Sensex was up 51,400, while the Nifty was just shy of the 15,150 mark. Asian Paints, Ultratech Cement, ONGC and Reliance Industries were the top gainers on the BSE Sensex during the initial few minutes of trade. Power Grid, Infosys and L&T were some of the drags. Broader markets were outperforming benchmarks. And amid domestic traders complaining of alleged violations of foreign direct investment norms by online players, Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal has said the government is considering coming out with certain clarifications to ensure that the sector works in the true spirit of the law and rules. He said the current FDI policy for the e-commerce sector is robust and well-designed. However, there are certain complaints from consumers and small retailers about certain practices of e-commerce companies which are under investigation. In other news, the Finance Ministry's monthly report on Tuesday said growth and inflation outlook for 2021-22 portends more than a full recovery. And the country has become the COVID vaccine hub of the world. The latest economic survey projects growth rate to rebound to 11% during 2021-22, while the budget estimated real GDP to be between 10 to 10.5%. News now from the global markets. Nasdaq Inc. and the New York Stock Exchange have each sued the Securities and Exchange Commission, seeking to block a plan by the regulator to overhaul public data feeds that broadcast stock prices to investors, court filings show. Under the SEC plan approved in December, supply and demand data for stocks would be added to public feeds, broadening access to the information, which the exchanges currently sell to professional traders at a premium. The filings were made in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit. Meanwhile, major indices oscillated near the flat line in a lazy Tuesday session, with small caps attracting the most buying interest. Gold, bonds, equities and VIX traded in lockstep, while the WTI crude oil contract continued its bullish assault, lifting to the highest high since January 2020. Long-time laggard SPDR S&P Oil and Gas Exploration and Production ETF rallied to a 52-week high, outperforming the broad-based SPDR Select Sector Energy ETF. Wall Street's benchmark S&P 500 index ended down 0.1% as investors watched Washington, where President Joe Biden's Democrats plan to move ahead without Republican help on a stimulus plan. The second impeachment trial is sapping market interest, killing momentum from stimulus legislation that is needed to keep bulls on the offensive. Americans on both sides of the aisle are exhausted after the election conflict, and reliving the sad tale is not the best way to encourage higher equity prices. Meanwhile, the slow drift higher continues unabated, while bears wait patiently for a more reliable selling opportunity. Asian stock markets rose Wednesday after Wall Street broke a 6-day winning streak. Shanghai, Tokyo, Hong Kong and Seoul, and as we were telling you, Asian stock markets doing extremely well. Seoul also advanced. The Shanghai Composite Index rose 0.7% to 3,629.54, while the Nikkei 225 in Tokyo advanced just under 0.1% to 29,531.48. The Hang Seng in Hong Kong added 1.6% to 29,958.51. The Kospi in Seoul gained 0.2% to 3,091.02, and Sydney's S&P ASX 200 was 0.6% higher at 6,860.50. Fitch Ratings on Tuesday said budget proposals will help Indian insurers attract foreign capital, strengthen solvency and promote competition. The proposals could encourage global insurers to enter the fast-expanding Indian market, while international insurers already holding minority stakes in domestic companies may try to increase their ownership over the medium term. In sports, England has won the Chennai Test by 227 runs. Chasing 420 runs to win, India were all out at 192 in the second innings. India resumed at 39 for 1 on day 5. Cheteshwar Pujara was the first wicket to fall. Leach sent him back for 15. Shubman Gill fell soon after, scoring another 50. Anderson removed Rahane in the same over without even opening his account. Rishabh Pant also fell to Anderson after scoring 11. Skipper Virat Kohli and R. Ashwin added 54 runs for the 7th wicket. Leach broke the partnership by removing Ashwin. Virat Kohli was bowled at 72 by Stokes. Indian innings soon folded at 192 in 58.1 overs. Jack Leach picked 4 wickets while James Anderson took 3. Joe Root has now drawn level with Michael Vaughan as England's most successful Test captain. England has sealed its 6th consecutive win in Asia. Munita Prajapati, a 19-year-old from Varanasi, has broken the under-20 10,000-meter race walk national record. This she did on the penultimate day of the 36th National Junior Athletics Championships in Guwahati on Tuesday. A time of 47:53:58 makes her the first Indian under-20 woman to go under 48 minutes in the event. Prince Pal Singh will realize his American dream as he kickstarts his professional basketball career today. 6 years after he first touched a basketball, Prince Pal, son of an electrician in Gurdaspur in Punjab, will become the third Indian hoopster to play in the G League of the National Basketball Association. The 20-year-old will play for Ignite, one of a kind development team consisting mostly of NBA draft prospects from around the world. He is also the first NBA Academy India graduate to sign a professional contract with the NBA G League. In football, Manchester United booked a place in the FA Cup quarter-finals, beating West Ham United by 1-0. Man U's Scott McTominay scored in extra time. United have reached the last 8 for a 7th consecutive year as they bid to lift the trophy for the first time since 2016. Managerless Bournemouth also reached the quarter-finals of the FA Cup for the first time in 64 years with victory at the Premier League Burnley. Sam Surridge put the championship club ahead after connecting with Jack Stacey's low cross. Junior Stanislas added the second from the penalty spot after Surridge was fouled. News now from the world of entertainment. The opening film at the 51st International Film Festival of India, Another Round, has been shortlisted for the Academy Awards in the Best International Feature Film category. Another Round, one of the year's most moving and funny films in the festival circuit, happens to have 4 middle-aged friends who are drunk to various levels most of the time. Another Round, directed by Danish filmmaker Thomas Winterberg, has been garnering praise from all over ever since it was screened at the Toronto International Film Festival. In some good news, Indian drama Pebbles, directed by filmmaker Vinod Raj PS, has won the top honours, the Tiger Award, for Best Film at the 50th International Film Festival of Rotterdam. Take a look. The Tamil language film follows an alcoholic, abusive husband who, after his long-suffering wife runs off, sets out with his young son to find her and bring her back. The Rotterdam Festival is considered to be one of the world's most prestigious festivals for experimental films. Well, that's all we have for you in this edition of News on the Hour. We'll be back again tomorrow at the same time. So do stay tuned, and for now, do keep watching DD India as news and updates continue. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.